Hey all, this is Tuboku and
Jarek the Jackass at the movies.
today I didn't bring any of it, I should have, but probably go run out and get some stuff in case you missed things in just a moment here while Jarek eats his popcorn, which again I can understand given the episode connotation, but like movies, it's still a TV show, but I guess at the TV movies or awards or whatnot. But hey. But yeah, it's episode.
Well, hey, don't tell that to Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, who cares about them? Their opinion 100 years ago. But as you see with the gloves I will try to put on again after so long, and that don't altogether fully fit me. But it is episode 13 of Fullmetal Alchemist. If you guys have seen the short review I put up a couple days ago, where Jared's going to weigh in on his opinion. If you guys have seen the short review, you know most of my thoughts. I'll probably chime in here and there, and got to clean these things too. But basically, it is Full Metal versus Flame, where Roy Mustang and Edward had their little fight, which was a little side knockoff fun thing from the manga. That, as you guys remember from my short review, I praised how they actually intricately wove it into the story and made a lot of sense. And as I go get my missing notes and things, Jarek,
Indeed.
Take it away.
Yeah, this is a fun episode in a lot of ways, not the least of which is we get to have one of the better Maze Hughes going full daddy mode moments multiple times. Because, I mean, hey, he's the dad we all wish we had at one point or another. We also get a... Yeah, I haven't had popcorn in a long time. And I figured, hey, as long as the soldiers are going to be having some popcorn while watching Flame versus Full Metal, why shouldn't we? Yeah, somebody busted out the popcorn during the match. So this is a fun little episode where, Edward and Al have to come back and
didn't realize this yet.
and give their little report to Roy Mustang. And, of course, Ed's just itching for the chance to give his report to the snide and sarcastic Roy, which he is a little bit of a mild hard ass, but interestingly enough, I know Ed and most people wouldn't realize this. He's actually going kind of soft on the kid. Sorry, one of the kernels went down wrong, but I mean, as much as Ed probably doesn't realize it, he's actually being pretty nice with the kids. But he is giving them a nice little lesson, in a gentle sort of sense, at least military-wise, as to how shit works in the military. And it is kind of neat, like in the little exchange between him and Roy at the beginning, that Roy gets to see that, yeah, the kid is catching on. He realizes there's always an underlying subtext to why Roy sends him to different locations to get things done. Granted, Ed does go a little off script. A little. But it is kind of fun to see the back and forth because stuff like that does happen a lot. You have a lot of stories of lower subordinates challenging their superior officers and sometimes earning their respect along the way. Yeah, if you ever see like Fat Electrician videos about military heroes and interesting battles, fun stuff. Some of the best military history recounting I've seen on YouTube. But before that, we also get to see Al just being the goofy little goober he is and wanting to adopt yet another animal, this time a cat, for the rain. And also, what's his name? I believe Fury?
Came through, found Black Hayate.
Yeah, we actually get Black Hayate's origin story. If you ever wondered why Riza Hawkeye has a cute little puppy that's so well trained in Brotherhood, this kind of explains it.
Which, again, it's how it happened in the manga. And again, they sort of incorporated. I mean, it still was a one-off side story and I think you see Hayate a few more times in the original show too. But they incorporated a side manga that fits into the original story. That's why she gets the dog and has the dog. And to the same point, to go along with Roy, what I liked about with Roy that I mentioned was how, again, Edward thinks maybe Roy doesn't know everything, but obviously Roy has some spies. I'm going to say his main people are being sent near these villages or areas they've gone to watch over them. Because Roy knew everything Edward and Alphonse did. Like, I mean, obviously, Father Cornello was going to be a huge thing they couldn't ignore, but he knew about Siren and his side rendezvous into that town. He knew about Xenotime.
Well, and it's even
so he's known everything that Edward and them have done. So
and it's even wonderful how he brings up the whole Siren incident where he's pretending that he's reprimanding him, and then he's like, "Hey, is it really true? Is Siren really a looker?" And
is Siren really a 10?
I mean, she's pretty close, but she's not quite a Bo Derek at her peak. Oh, I know you people know what that means. Don't pretend. I know you watched Tarzan the Ape Man.
Well, as long as they're within our age group or higher.
Yeah, little spoiler warning there. I know Dumbledore in his younger years was in Tarzan the Ape Man, but 18 and plus on that one towards the end.
Well, which one, Richard Harris or Michael Gambon?
Richard Harris.
Ah, there you go.
But hey, he was also King Arthur, so he's earned the right.
Indeed.
But anyways, it's kind of funny because again, it's like Roy Mustang really lets you know it's like, yeah, I am that good looking, and I do think I have a chance with her. But we all know she don't got a chance with him because Riza Hawkeye got there first.
Yeah.
Giggity, giggity. But anyways, it's kind of a fun little exchange, and we get to see, and this is what I love about OG Full Metal, because we get to see a lot about his subordinates based on how they react to Black Hayate. Kane Fury is definitely the sweet little cinnamon roll because he wants to keep the dog safe no matter what. Riza Hawkeye is just kind of like assessing and analyzing everything from a distance. I love when she asked, like, Fullman, what is this? And I believe that's a small adolescent canine, ma'am, I know what it is. I was asking more about the situation. Seriously, he goes full German on this, and I kind of love it because, I mean, he looks the most German. He's got the most German name. He's kind of the one guy we really get to spend the least amount of time with most of the time. So it was just kind of fun to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, of course, Roy has to bust in, and he's like, a puppy, and you're thinking, oh my God, he's going to barbecue him or some shit. We're like, right away, it's like, wonderful. I love puppies. They're blindly loyal. They never ask questions. They do exactly as they're told, and you hardly even have to take care of them.
They never ask for a raise.
It is the most Roy Mustang response second most Roy Mustang response we're going to get this episode.
One, then don't forget, Haven's Breda is terrified of dogs. He was up on one of the lockers, like trying to stay away from it, saying, "No way, I hate dogs."
Yeah, he was having a bit of a Yamcha moment, a bit of a more comedic Yamcha moment, not the boom kind. And then, of course, there was also what's that other guy, the redheaded kind of, the other redheaded guy,
Jean Havoc.
Yeah, Jean Havoc, where he's like, I could take him in. It's like, really? Yeah, I hear they're great for cooking, especially if you season it. It's like, no. Riza just grabs the dog from him.
Hey, I was joking.
Now, it is funny, too, because, I mean, as he points out, most of these guys spend a lot of time in Eastern Command, which would put them close to Xerxes. And if Xerxes is anything like mainland China, yeah, you can use dogs for cooking. Chow mein, lo mein, udon noodles. But, yeah, I mean, in fact, when I lived up in Cardinal Valencia, we had a Chinese restaurant that was putting the cats in the neighborhood to interesting new uses in a culinary sense. Yeah, they got shut down for serving cats. So, yeah, it's not a meme, people. It's real. Especially if you happen to be in Korea. Anyways, as you know, of course, Al's got the cute little kitty in his stomach, and his brother wants him to basically, just put it back where he found it because we can't afford to take care of a kitty. Plus, they're always on the road, so how would they? This, of course, kind of triggers the old memories in Al, and Al's remembering when Ed wanted to adopt a cat. Mom said no.
No, it was Edward who came in with the kitten.
Yeah.
And Alphonse was watching him. Like, don't you remember what you were doing? But that's probably why Edward had the thought, because he was like Alphonse at one point. But realizing that his mother had a point that they really didn't have the resources to take care of cat. Him and Edward don't have the resources right now to take care of it.
And it's kind of neat to see, again, it really points to how the boys are growing up. kind of really fast and early because of all this military stuff. And then, of course, we get to the crux of this. Like, we need a home for these animals. What do we do? Well, of course, best boy ever, Mace Hughes, lets it slip that, yeah, your evaluation's coming up. Oh, and there's also like this combat evaluation, but you guys are kids and you just started, so you probably won't have to do something like that. And Ed gets the most brilliant idea ever. I'll do the combat evaluation, but I want Roy Mustang to be my opponent. And if I win, he has to tell me about Dr. Murko, and he also has to take in the cat.
Yeah, well, and you also did forget, because what led to Dr. Marco plus the cat was the fact that, remember when he was making his report, he brings up the fact that the people that Belcio of Xenotime mentioned Dr. Marco, and he said, hey, did Dr. Marco come across any of your travels? No, I can't say I've heard the name. And that's and Edward knew that Roy Mustang was hiding something.
Well, Belcio actually was the one who told about it. Roy was the one who denied it. But it's kind of neat because they're in the mess hall, the military equivalency to a cafeteria, and he's talking to Mace Hughes, and Mace Hughes lets it slip that he's telling him, oh, I just got a promotion to I think, what was it, like
Lieutenant Colonel?
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel. Hello, Mr. North, to being the head of the what was it? The
Investigations Division.
Court Martial
Division. Court Martial Division. Yeah.
Which, by the way, is absolutely a sign that these people don't know what they're doing, because he's the nicest, sweetest little cupcake, and he's the guy soldiers would want in a court martial setting. Because if you know anything about how the military conducts trials, it is the second most bullshit legal system in North America, just after the divorce court system. If you're a man, that's an automatic loss. At least with the military, maybe you have a chance, but you're really going to have all of your paperwork, evidence, and possibly a few higher-ups on your side. If you don't believe me, watch Terrence Popp. He's got like entire videos dedicated to this shit called administrative violence. Anyways, he gets promoted to lieutenant colonel, and now he's going to be in charge of court martials. Which I have to imagine they probably did this because they don't want him snooping around, all the secure files all the time. Except now he's a lawyer, and he's going to be able to use that to snoop around even harder and possibly get into even deeper files. So, again, military intelligence. Just keep that in the back of your minds. But yeah, he's talking to Ed at the mess hall, and he's saying like, and Ed mentions to him, shouldn't you be in Central then? It's like, you think I want to be there when everybody's jumping ship because of, he kind of like corrects himself real quick. So the conversation, he shifts the conversation to Dr. Murko because Ed brought it up, and he's like, do you know anything? It's like, not really. Roy might. And of course, the Brigadier General, the guy who, what was that?
Boskron.
Yeah, Boskron, the guy who was basically being the sponsor to Tucker, basically hears the name. It's like the traitor, the deserter. This, of course, piques Edward's interest. So later he's in the library pouring through anything, and they basically scrubbed all evidence of this guy from their records.
Well, and like I brought up when we watched it together, not only that, you said that Edward took interest, and yet Hughes's look at Boskron was, don't stir this kid's mind, don't go there, Boskron, because his was like a look of like an evil glare of like, what are you doing? Because he knows Boskron doesn't care, because he looks at Edward as just another soldier. Edward's just a kid, and Hughes knows his kid's being inquisitive. Inquisitiveness is going to look into it.
And I think what worried him is, and this is just my theory, by the way, but I think Boskron did it on purpose, knowing that it would get these kids riled up, and then they would in turn look into it and cause trouble for Roy Mustang. Because, I mean, we've kind of already seen that there's a bit of a rivalry between these two, so what better way to kind of try to undermine Roy Mustang than to get these new kid prodigies of theirs all riled up on something they should be involved in.
Well, more than likely, which begs the question, with or without the fight, would Roy have eventually told Edward where he was too. That's always the thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those military comedy of errors style things where Boscaron probably did this thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna be able to use these kids as a wedge against Mustang," not realizing Roy Mustang probably already had his plans to tell these kids eventually because he probably figured these kids will find out eventually. And hey, Dr. Murko is a pretty solid dude, so why not? So it's kind of one of those Starscream situations where if you didn't let your goddamn ego get in the way and have to shoot the arc after getting reactivated, Optimus wouldn't have been in the way of the repair beam and the Autobots would not have come back to life. Oops. By the way, Starscream has the nastiest habit of being the best Decepticon killer and the best accidental Autobot helper ever. Seriously, him switching sides to Armada was just an obvious choice. But hey, we'll get there if we ever talk about Transformers.
Indeed.
So of course Ed comes up with the brilliant idea. I will do the military the combat exercise and I'll do it with Mustang. So of course, Roy, they tell Roy, and he's like, what a shame. I mean, with my prowess, of course I would be able to defeat them handily, but I mean, they're just kids, and that would just be unfair. Enter everybody's favorite evil grandpa, Brad the Chad, the general of Black Force Air Force energy. Shout out to CJ the Champ on YouTube, by the way. And of course, he hears this as like, I think that's a wonderful idea. I'll make the arrangements immediately. Yeah. This is why you don't do dumb shit like this, Roy. Never shoot your mouth off. So, of course, he's in the hallway talking with, I believe it was, which one was it?
Regine Havoc and Risa Hawkeye.
Havoc and Hawkeye. And this is where we get everyone's favorite Roy Mustang moment where Havoc is like, sir, are you really going to do it? And it's like, and he's of course I have something along the lines of like, only somebody who's willing to make bold moves is going to be able to challenge for the position of the Fuhrer. And Riza has to remind him, sir, you really shouldn't say shit like that out loud. It could be seen as treason. And it's like, but sir, do you really think you really think it would work? And he's like, of course. After all, once I become the Fuhrer. No, he asks him something like, why would anybody choose to follow you, though? It's like, because once I become Fuhrer, all female subordinates will be forced to wear tiny mini skirts. I'll follow you to the depths of hell, sir.
Yeah, and his pose of just like that.
Now, what's interesting, if you notice, Riza Hawkeye just kind of blows this off and is just like, whatever. But you can tell she knows that A, he's serious about this, and B, it kind of doesn't worry her because she already knows she's his best gal. No matter how many other girls there will be, he's only coming home to one girl and one girl only, and that will always be Riza.
Yeah, and we talked about this too. The differences with Brotherhood in this one. In this one, he seems to be like fully into the whole female thing, like probably playing around with the perversions and whatnot. Sort of like Brock, or even from Pokemon, or even what's his name? Moroku from Inuyasha, where he wants to just project this image onto people if that's who he is. But like Jarek was saying, Riza Hawkeye more than likely is going to be his pick. It's just that he's got this thing to maintain because he thinks it's manly just to have it. But in Brotherhood, we find out, and we got to the anime where it's in that point where all these women he calls are either spies or they're code words for his military operations. That's the alchemic, I guess that's his alchemic secret code. As we haven't gotten to it in the original. I think we're about to get to it soon, but every alchemist has an alchemic code word within their messaging to give to people, and that was Roy's, was the woman. But in this one, it's nice to see how he's doing it to just project an image that he's this man, and I love the women, but I'm also still tough, and it's cool to see.
And considering, the military is usually comprised mostly of men largely, it's a pretty good ploy to use. Because, I mean, come on. If you're in the military, of course, your bros are going to have an easier time identifying with you, if you're like, yeah, I'm all about getting them ladies, boy. So honestly, it's kind of a neat gimmick, but yeah, it's kind of like what he said. It's more like Moroku, where yeah, he'll definitely make the pass at every other girl, but there's always just going to be that one.
Yeah.
Or heck, for you new anime fans, I suppose we could say even like Zenitsu from Demon Slayer.
Mm.
He's going to hit on every girl, but you better believe he's only got eyes for that kid's sister of the main character, because yeah, he does get married to her by the end. Which I have to be honest, kind of a weird choice, Demon Slayer. I would have had her go with Inosuke, but whatever. Anyways, so the day of Le Grand Fight comes, and of course, Mace Hughes just absolute fucking daddies it up. He's got the giant placard of his daughter. But hey, before everything happens, look at my daughter. She just turned 3. Isn't she wonderful? And everybody's just losing their shit with him.
Yeah, and then the giant placard of her falls on him, and he's like, no, Alicia, don't fall on Daddy. Ah!
I mean, we all know this is why we're going to be just bawling our eyes out a few episodes from now, but God damn it is so nice to just see Hughes being full Daddy Hughes.
Yeah.
And of course comes one of the most ominous moments where he's about to do the fight, and he's just like, get ready, get set, runs away, go. Or as I like to
get
say,
ready to fight.
Gundam battle, ready, go. I'm sorry, I love G Gundam too much. I had to. It's a Gundam reference, and it's about Street Fighter Gundams. Who wouldn't? But yeah, this kind of gives you an indication of what Edward's up against, because May Hughes may not be the best combatant, but if he's a state alchemist, he's certainly not a joke. The way he runs for the fucking hills when he shouts go, that tells you something. And yeah, we see why. Edward is definitely probably on a higher power level in terms of alchemy and knowledge, but there's a small problem. What's his name? Roy Mustang isn't exactly a slouch when it comes to alchemy, and he's got combat experience, and he's got the killer instinct.
Well, yeah, because you see it where he just starts doing that, and he starts spouting off, like rules of combat to Edward, where Edward, all he can do is run away,
because
Mustangs is laying on the pressure.
Because they have been inducted into the military, but you have to bear in mind it's only been about 3 months. They've mostly been doing busy work for Roy Mustang, so I doubt they got the full boot camp training. So Edward is kind of going into this just based off of whatever he's already learned thus far. And you can see he's pretty damn clever, because he tries hiding in the audience, which, of course, being so small would make him hard to see. But Roy, of course, being the combat veteran he is, teases him about his height, which gets the pipsqueak to jump up and lose his shit like he always does. And boom. And it's just boom.
Yeah,
boom.
which everybody turns gray and blue, and they all just go flying. Like,
now, of course, Roy gets a little overconfident, and goes a little too Michael Bay with his explosions. And by the way, we also get a nice explanation of how his fire magic works. He's basically super condensing the air and then just igniting it with the gloves, basically creating a spark through the gloves to ignite the super condensed oxygen. It's basically the principle of a backdraft. If you ever watched the movie, where if you have too much oxygen condensing in one area, it can cause a huge fireball type explosion. It's kind of like what that girl was doing in that one episode in the mining town, except with Roy, he can actually ignite the air with the gloves, because the gloves are a special material that basically allow him to create the spark. And of course, it's also got like the alchemy thing on it.
Yeah.
Which, my boy Boku here has.
Yeah.
But of course, Roy got a little too overconfident. And of course, all that smoke is basically making it hard for him to see, which allows Edward to, use his alchemy to create a rock dummy, which he puts his coat on. Roy, being the battle-hardened veteran he is, his eyes instantly go towards the red coat, only to notice, oops, dummy. And then he comes up from behind and just slashes the glove to remove the symbol on it. It's like, can't do your special alchemy without your fancy glove. Roy, of course.
Oh, look, another glove in my pocket.
Yep. And I mean, again, it shows that Edward is a fast thinker, but Roy definitely has the combat experience. And he's basically got Edward dead to rights until he looks like that kid. And then he just freezes. And Edward notices this, and of course, everybody's favorite grandpa of war crimes shows up yet again. It's like, very
Well,
nice display, young men, but I'm going to have to ask you to stop it here. It's like,
one I think he did because if you remember his wrist dagger thing that he created
yeah,
through his arm was right at Roy's throat, and again, maybe it's just because of who Mustang was, only that he did it, or he realized that, even though these are one of my men, and again, you guys know if you've seen Brotherhood, who Bradley is already a homunculi, but still, either way, whether it was to keep up the facade or not, like, because I know people say, oh, Edward wouldn't have killed him. Considering how they were both getting into that fight and considering Edward's on and off feelings for Roy, you never know
yeah,
because Edward was very desperate. I mean, yeah, the cat was a part of the deal, but he really wanted to know Marco, and he really wanted, like, he even told Alphonse, I want to beat it out of Roy Mustang. And that's the thing, like, he had Mustang dead to rights because it was right here in that PTSD moment that Roy had stopped him in his tracks.
well,
And that's when he said, all right, that's enough,
and this kind of goes back to a lot of things. Like, for one thing, if you remember in one of the previous reviews where we were talking about Riza's speech about how killing people is different for snipers because through the scope you can actually see the expressions on their faces as you're killing them. Well, Roy has that moment because probably more than a few of his previous battles, he probably had to chase some of these people down, and they were kids. And it's one thing to kill a person at like 500 yards, with like a scopeless rifle. Doing that up close and personal when you can see the look in their eyes, that is completely different.
Well, yeah, and then to that, to the point that I know you're getting to is when, again, they have to clean up the field after it's broken down.
Well, I'm about to get to my theory on that one too, but this, again, he has his PTSD moment, which is kind of a nice touch because we didn't really see that in Brotherhood, at least not yet, anyways. But the reason why I kind of think Bradley broke this up is multiple reasons. Number one, like was mentioned in the mess hall, everybody had to flee Central because somebody's going around killing state alchemists. And I believe Bradley, number one, had to keep up the facade that he's not basically a god powered homunculi. So he has to play into the soldiers' concerns for his safety because of this state alchemy murdering whoever he is. Number two, I mean, he just moved here. He probably doesn't want these two continuing and blowing up half the base and probably a good third of their military in the process. I mean, it's kind of a rule of practicality. And number three, he's probably a little pissed that he can't just stay in Central and hunt down this guy and see if he's a worthy challenge to him, which we're going to see both in Brotherhood and in this anime. So knowing Bradley, he's probably in a bit of a mood and he's having to hide it because, hey, this guy killed 5 state alchemists. He might be fun to go up against. I can finally get my Goku match with this dude. No, I have to pretend to be a kindly old grandpa running the military. So, he tells him it's like, boys, as fun as it was watching you in this entertaining little match, I'm going to need you to stop and clean up this mess together. And this is just Bradley, again, flexing as all hell because, yeah, you could keep fighting, but if you destroy more of my property and cause more trouble for me, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to smack the crap out of both of you. He's just not saying it like that. He's just like, I'm going to need you to stop and be good little boys and clean up this mess or else. Because, I mean, it's Bradley. I mean, Roy Mustang is on a different level than fucking Edward right now because he's got the experience and he's killed people before. Edward is definitely higher up in terms of raw power and intelligence, but again, he has yet to really focus that, up until he meets Ultra Mommy and Muscle Daddy. You know who, they're coming. But but Bradley? Oh, no. This guy could probably mop the floor with them, Al, Riza Hawkeye, and everybody else at the base alone. At least for now. Things do tend to change. Time changes everything and everyone. So, but it's a neat little thing, and we get to see the two of them talking things out as they're basically cleaning up their mess. And of course, Roy, in his usual fashion, finally discusses why he didn't talk about Dr. Mercot earlier. It was out of respect. See, Dr. Mercot was not a big fan of what they were doing in Ishval, and he basically left the military. This kind of goes back again to the previous episode where we learned that somebody was curing the people who were infected with the red water due to the air vapor, and they did so with alchemy, which, as it turns out, was Dr. Mercot. Roy, basically said, out of all the people, I think he was the wisest. He left. He knew what we were doing was wrong. This is one of those soldier moments you rarely see in any form of media. Because, yeah, he is honor bound as a soldier to basically see him as a deserter. But as a human being, he recognizes that Dr. Mercot put his station as a doctor above all else. And what they were doing in Ishval was, well, that's not doing no harm. That's doing all the harm. So he left. And honestly, Roy respects him. And you can see that this is why Dr. Mercot is such a pivotal person to him, both in this and in Brotherhood. Dr. Mercot probably did what Roy Mustang didn't really have the courage to do at the time. Maybe even not even now. And that's honestly important to Roy. So yeah, he tells him, yeah, Dr. Mercot is still alive. Let me tell you where he is. And this is inevitably going to lead to some very big things down the road. But it's a neat moment, and of course we get to see Riza Hawkeye and everybody watching them get punished, having to clean up the field together. And Riza kind of already figured out why Bradley did this to them. It's actually, again, a neat thing to know that Riza, being the team sniper, is definitely one of the more observant and intelligent characters. And also, we get to see, how she got Black Hayate. Nobody else could take the dog, so she decides to take the dog. And then he whizzes on the side of the building, and she basically shoots at him. It's like, but I'm going to warn you, I'm a very strict disciplinarian.
With the dog doing this.
Yep. So yeah, we get the epic backstory of Black Hayate. We get to learn more about the Elrics, Roy Mustang. And yeah, this is leading up to some things are going to be ramping up because we've already seen that Bradley's got a secretary who looks very familiar. We already know what's going to happen to Mace Hughes. We know that's coming. It's just a matter of when, where, why, and how. We already see Roy Mustang and the Brigadier General just basically button heads all day long in very inappropriate ways, I might add. We already see Riza Hawkeye being the badass she is destined to be, and the Edwards are one step closer to where they need to be. Things are going to start moving.
Yep. Well, then, for that one there, who were your characters this episode, Jarek?
Oof, man, this had a lot of good ones, but I'm going to have to go with Roy. Roy had a lot of great moments, and we get to see a lot of his range in this, from goofball Roy to serious Roy to kind of heartbroken PTSD Roy. This was a great episode for Mr. Mustang.
Yeah, Roy was definitely up there as characters. I had a couple more. Did you have anybody else?
Oh, yeah. Again, Edward is another easy, obvious choice.
Edward was also on my list.
And it's actually kind of neat to see, towards the end of the episode that he's, as angry and upset with Roy as he was, he begins to realize a bit more about how Roy's mind works and why he didn't talk about Dr. Mercot earlier. It's a really great episode for, the dynamic and relationship between Roy and Edward. Al's another easy pick because, again, this kid had a lot of range for such a young person. And honestly, everybody in this episode was great. But, of course, my tertiary pick has to be Mace Hughes because,
which again was also on my list.
Full daddy mode, serious when he needs to be. And this episode actually showed me something I kind of overlooked before. I noticed out of all the characters, Mace Hughes is the only guy who's got gold-like eyes, aside from the Elrics, which for, again, alchemy, gold eyes, philosopher's stone, ascending to a higher plane of intelligence, which, as we see with Mace Hughes, he's definitely one of the smarter characters. Just remember, kids, just because you're smart, though, doesn't mean you're invincible. We're definitely getting that lesson down the road. But it's kind of neat to see that Mace Hughes, he's a pretty smart guy. But, smart people do have their weaknesses, emotions. protecting the kids.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're gonna lose him down the road, but dear God, it's fun while he's here.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Riza also would have been a pretty close pick for number 3 because, again, she's just such an absolute unit.
Oh yeah.
And of course, there's Brad because nobody does the goofy to serious like Brad, Fear King Bradley.
Well, I think I mentioned Hawkeye as one of my dark favorite picks, and then yeah, like Bradley also made it on the list for me too. So did Fury, but yeah, we basically had pretty much the same pick of the characters this time around. So hey, but
And Fury did a good job too because that freak out over the dog is actually pretty realistic.
Oh no, that was Breda, Josh Berry, Tomoyuki Shimogoya. Which, yeah, to basically give you guys a thing, Edward, Vic Mignogna, Roby Paku, Alphonse, Aaron Desmook, Ria Kugamiya, Roy, Travis Willingham, Toru Okawa, Hughes, Sonny Strait, Keiji Fujiwara. You did mention Hawkeye, Colin Clinkenbeard, Michiko Nea, and Fury, Kevin Connolly, Tetsu Shiratori, Bradley, Ed Blaylock, Hidekatsu Shibata.
Yeah, and I mean, strange to mention this, but most of the anime games I got on Steam have those people in the voice cast. So, hey, good jobs.
Yep. Well, and great voice actors. Unlike some of them, and more than likely when we get to some more of our anime, either probably more than likely both between me and Jarek, and sadly to some of my own, and I'm not going to name them now because I don't want to talk about them now. We have mentioned them before, so you probably know the 2, maybe 3 or 4 we're talking about. I will respect them as performers. I always will, but as people,
yeah,
and you
know what you did,
and I'm just glad I got one of their autographs before we hit the Dark Tides. But as far as I know, I mean, I haven't looked up to see where these people have been recently, but I know I haven't seen her on any major con circuits recently. So,
well, I mean, hey, she got her 15 minutes of fame out of that shit. I hope it was worth it.
Well, yeah, and look how Vic Mignogna is still trying to go strong no matter what, even though sadly he doesn't have a career. But without mentioning the names, I will bring something up before we end, just for you anime fans as we talk about anime. I saw a thing where a famous voice actor who was working on Fairy Tale just left because he says Crunchyroll is not worth it. He's like saying, if you guys thought he said if you thought, I looked at it really quick, I didn't read all of it. He said, if you guys thought Funimation had its problems, I'd rather go back to there where I was before, because he's like, when Crunchyroll brought them out, he's like, Crunchyroll is 10 times worse. Now, it was only him. They didn't say anybody else, but this is why this guy's leaving. He's the big. I don't know who did the voice actor, but he's the guy on Fairy Tail who was the big, gray skinned looking dude with the long hair and the piercings.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, because he said Crunchyroll was just bad. Now again, like I said, one person, guys, do not take what I'm saying as gospel, because this is live. This is already circulating on the internet. So I'm just saying that take it for what it was. I didn't read it fully, but that's just what he said in a quick little blip that I saw, because we have heard other allegations against Crunchyroll / Funimation before. Funimation did have some allegations, but it seemed to be a better run place than what we've been hearing about Crunchyroll recently.
Funny you mentioned that, because that might tie into the one that I heard. You know that new guy who's voicing Frieza? I forget his name.
Damon Mills?
Yeah, the twink looking dude with like the dyed hair or whatever.
Yeah. Well, again, we won't bring up the others, but since you brought up Damon Mills was the third person involved with Vic Mignogna losing his career.
I heard even more allegations of Zarbon activity with a new Frieza may have come out. So, hey, I mean, maybe he heard about that along with, some of the other dumb shit with Crunchyroll.
Well, hey, if it's true, then Damon Mills may not have a career. I mean, again, I have a few things with him in it. I respect his stuff, but
But I looked at the dude, I'm like, I'm getting some Adam Lambert vibes from this guy. Maybe this is why Zarbon gets to stay on the Frieza Force, whereas he kills everyone else.
Well, again, I'm not trying to pitch it at there, but again, for me, I mean, Damon Mills, I will say, does an all right Frieza. It's not, in my opinion, not the best. The two that were good for the male voice, Christopher Ayers, may you rest in peace. Was a great Frieza, along with some of the other things he did. If you guys don't know, Christopher Ayers was Greg Ayers' brother. Greg, I think, had a bit more fame than Christopher did, but Christopher was like just right behind him in voice acting talent. And again, he did Frieza before Damon Mills took over, but again, he died, so that's why Damon Mills now does the character. However, no disrespect to Christopher Ayers either when I say this. Linda Young is my Frieza. Because yes, Frieza was still supposed to be a man, but the way Linda Young did it, she captured again the arrogance of the Japanese actor to have that. And the people say, "Oh, it's too much like this and too like that." I'm like, for me it worked. It was better than the Ocean Dub Frieza we got, and Linda Young gave a great performance with that character. So I gotta say, Linda Young is still my favorite in the early days of Funimation when they were taking off with their business before the Crunchyroll buyout.
Hey, at least it wasn't as bad as that Italian dub of World's Strongest.
Oh God, yeah. Well, they have a whole bunch of things with those early Dragon Ball dubs, which are absolutely bad. Which I need to work on getting the rest of the movies, by the way. But enough of our tangents.
Yeah.
Just let you guys know what you thought in the comments below. Like I said, good episode that's incorporating more into the story. We're starting to get really into the meat of it now. Just let us know down below, and we'll be
and hey,
back
quick
to you
question.
guys again.
How do you like your popcorn? Do you like it regular or do you like it Roy Mustang extra crispy? I mean, come on. That shit got caught in the backblast.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
I had to.